Danhausen makes his AEW debut on Dynamite Beach Break last night. We have an undisputed TNT champion. Huge matches announced for Dynamite next week, Rampage on Friday, and Dynamite the week after. All this and more in today's AEW news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is plenty of news stories to get into today, so let's talk about Danhausen making his AEW debut during the main event of last night's Dynamite Beach Break. Now, during last night's main event, it was a lights-out match between Orange Cassidy and Adam Cole, and we saw an unexpected appearance by former Ring of Honor star Danhausen. Now, as can be seen in the clips all over social media that's still talking about his appearance, Adam Cole was going to retrieve a steel chair from underneath the ring, but was struggling to pull it out. You could see he was struggling to pull it out, and they actually shot this really well, in fairness to AEW, because you couldn't see under the ring. It was really dimly lit underneath there. Suddenly, with Cole finally being able to pull the chair out from under the ring, you see Danhausen come out holding the opposite side of the chair. The crowd cheered in surprise, and Danhausen struck a pose with his eyes opened wide and staring straight at Adam Cole. This allowed Orange Cassidy to get the upper hand, and Danhausen was distracting his opponent. Now, after the appearance wrapped up, AEW President Tony Khan took to Twitter and confirmed that Danhausen is officially All Elite. The former Ring of Honor star has been teasing for several weeks at this point that he was going to sign with AEW. I think a lot of people thought that this was going to happen. He's had back and forths with CM Punk, and Tony Khan's been asked about him several times. Tony Khan said on Twitter, quote, "He has arrived. Danhausen is All Elite." Now, some people might be saying, well, why didn't he physically get involved? Well, that's because he's currently out of action due to an injury that he suffered on Halloween night. He broke his leg during a match on the independent scene, which he's been rehabilitating ever since. The former Ring of Honor star revealed recently that he's hoping to be back in action by next month, February time, which would explain why he's on television now for a debut match at some point in the next month or so. I'm a huge Danhausen fan. I'm a bit of a late comer to Danhausen, to be honest. I only really discovered him last year. I mean, around sort of the spring, summertime last year. But if you haven't seen him before, I would just recommend, just go watch his stuff. Just go watch his stuff. You won't be disappointed. If you're looking for this unbelievable pro wrestler, you probably won't see it. He can work. He can work matches. But the character of Danhausen is so over the top, and it so shouldn't work, but it just does. It just does. And it's a caricature of an evil supervillain, but like kind of a comedic supervillain. He does the voice, the way he walks around like Roger out of American Dad with his sort of hands flopping in front of him. It just works. And everyone knew that he was going to sign with AEW, right? Because those kind of characters are super over with that audience. They work with that audience. And I'm excited. Where does it go? I have no idea. I mean, he debuted in an Adam Cole match, so I suppose you could say maybe does he feud with Adam Cole? But he shouldn't really be feuding with Adam Cole. I don't think he's not that kind of guy. He, to me, maybe he can progress to be something like that, but he's like Orange Cassidy in the sense that Orange Cassidy, some people don't like the gimmick. The reason why Orange Cassidy is in main events, the reason why Orange Cassidy has competed for world championships is because he's one of the most over characters in all of AEW. That's the reason why. He's one of the highest merch sellers. He trends every time he appears for AEW. They make memes and GIFs out of him and all this kind of stuff because he's over. He's super popular. And I think that Danhausen's going to be exactly the same. He's popular anyway, Danhausen, but given a bigger platform, which he's now on, given the face paint and all of the merchandise possibilities and, again, the social media traction that he gets, I think he's going to be super popular. Now, do I see him being AEW World Champion? No. But that gimmick doesn't work that way. It's a comedic gimmick, but he can have serious matches at points in the way that they've kind of transitioned Orange Cassidy into being serious at points, but still retaining the gimmick as it was originally intended. So I don't know if he's going to be feuding with Adam Cole. I hope not. Like I said, I don't see that necessarily working. I do maybe see, a more of a back and forth with Orange Cassidy and Danhausen, and maybe that's what they're going towards, and just think of the segments that could happen there. But I'm super happy. I'm a big Danhausen fan, as I mentioned, and whilst he's not going to be wrestling for the next month or so again because of the leg injury, there's no reason why he can't come to TV, cut promos, just randomly appear like last night. I know some people said, well, it was a bit anticlimactic because he just appears and walks off, but that's kind of what he does. He is weird. He just kind of just appears and is walking around, shuffling around, doing stuff. That's Danhausen. So don't be surprised if next week in Chicago, I mean, he got a great pop last night. I think he'll get an even bigger one next week. Don't be surprised if he just randomly appears again. Instead of coming out from under the ring, he does something different. I don't know what he could do, but the possibilities are endless. So I loved it. I'm a big Danhausen fan. And as far as the match itself between Adam Cole and Orange Cassidy, of course, got the win with a big dive off the stage with both of them. I thought the match was good. I don't know necessarily how I feel about Adam Cole's first defeat coming to Orange Cassidy. I think in fairness, you could say it was main event of a TV special. Comes off the stage. Adam Cole was protected. That's probably fair. It doesn't count towards his win-loss anyway. So I still think he'll be the next challenger for Hangman Page after Lance Archer. I'm just not one of those people that prefers to build people up by losing. What is this, WWE? But he's got to lose at some point, right? And I think also you have to think of it as Orange Cassidy's done a lot of jobs to Adam Cole recently, and they still want to protect that character because there's a lot of equity in it. But then you get into the range of 50-50 booking, which also AEW wants to try and avoid. So it's a difficult one. Again, I would have probably had Adam Cole winning that one to try and build him up for the Hangman Page match that they're going to do, I would assume at Revolution. But maybe they're going in a different direction. Time will only tell. But yeah, actually, it was surprising that it main evented the show last night because... And the crowd was with it, especially towards the end. But for a while, they were struggling. And I think that they were struggling because of the first match of the show. And that is the TNT ladder match between Sammy Guevara and Cody Rhodes. Because last night's AEW Dynamite saw a ladder match kick off the show to determine the undisputed TNT champion. Sammy Guevara, of course, was the interim champion. And Cody Rhodes was the holder of the, I guess, original championship. And as the match finished up, Sammy Guevara was the undisputed TNT champion, defeating Cody Rhodes. I think this was the right call. I was concerned that they wouldn't be going in that direction. It makes me think that the original plan was for Sammy to drop the championship to Cody Rhodes on Christmas night on Rampage, and then he would win it back at Battle of the Bouts a couple of weeks later to hype up that TV special and give it a big pop. And obviously that didn't happen because of Cody Rhodes not being available. So I think that was probably the plan, and they just pivoted to doing the ladder match instead. Watch it. It's a fantastic ladder match. Some of the spots in there, specifically the Sammy Guevara spots, are insane. The sort of springboard cutter that he does on that ladder, where he does the sort of the Jeff Hardy where he leapsfrog, but instead he lands on the top and then jumps into a cutter, is one of the most insane things I've seen in a ladder match, and that says a lot considering what we've seen when it comes to ladder matches over the year. I just thought that was absolutely incredible. I really did. The crossroads off the ladder was awesome as well. I mean, he did the sort of swanton off the ladder too, but the ladder didn't break. I loved it, and I think it was the right outcome, absolutely. I think it puts Guevara over, and now that we're at the end of it, you can say, I get it. I get what they were trying to achieve with it, and also as well, I think maybe you have to consider that maybe AEW realized, actually, maybe they were kind of at one point thinking about going into a Cody Rhodes, Scorpio Sky direction for the TNT Championship, but given everything that's surrounding Cody Rhodes right now, and we'll talk about that in a second, they've actually just realized, you know what? He doesn't need to be involved in that title picture right now. Let it be Sammy Guevara. Let it be Scorpio Sky. Let them do that. We don't need to see Cody Rhodes in that. And I think a lot of the fans agree with that as well. We just don't need to see that. So I think it was the right call. Really enjoyed the match. And Sammy Guevara is now a two-time TNT champion. Now, speaking about Cody Rhodes, I mentioned that we have an update when it comes to his contract. And Cody Rhodes has addressed it. Cody Rhodes has confirmed that he's been working without an active contract for AEW. He did an interview after his match against Sammy Guevara. And this is what he said, quote, "There are so many elephants in the room. This is an insane week in wrestling. People think the Sean Ross story is BS. No, it's not. I'm here working without a contract. I'm not even on payroll anymore." He's weaving in and out of working and shooting. "I'm working here on a handshake deal that is 100% legitimate, but I can tell you this, I've never felt more at home than under those lights, wrestling for the TNT Championship, a title that will never ever be secondary because of matches like that." So, look, I think that what he's saying there is true in the sense that he's working without a contract. That's been confirmed. I don't think Sean Ross Sapp would run a story that wasn't true, that wasn't accurate. I certainly don't think that Sean Ross Sapp would run a story that's a work, that he's working cloak and dagger with AEW or anything like that, because you lose all credibility as a journalist once you start doing that. So he wouldn't do that. I think that Cody Rhodes is indeed working without a contract. I think he's probably negotiating one. As I've said before, Cody Rhodes, I think, is staying with AEW. I have no doubts that he will re-sign, that he's just too woven in, not just to AEW, but also to Warner Media, right? He's got the Road to the Top show. He's on the Go Big show. It makes no sense right now for him to sign elsewhere. I think he's just negotiating. I think he's trying to work out a better deal for himself, but I think ultimately he'll stay. I do think, though, as well, that they've seen this story and the news has got out about his contract situation, and I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Rhodes and AEW have said, you know what, let's work with it. We can play up that he's a free agent. Let's have him appear at some indie shows. Maybe he does an appearance for Impact. Maybe he goes to Mexico. Maybe he works for New Japan or something like that, just to kind of play up that, oh, actually, he can appear. And they've got working relationships with these companies anyway. As I said, ultimately, Cody Rhodes is going to re-sign with AEW, but I think this is the next storyline of Cody Rhodes not knowing what his future is going to look like. And given the heel heats, I think it's I don't know, I've been saying that Cody needs to turn. I think everyone has, but this would be the time, right? If that he, demands money or holds up the promoter, right, for extra cash, akin to like a Jeff Jarrett or something like that, and maybe gets a contract put into his, a clause put into his contract that allows him to compete for the AEW World Championship. That weaves that way into it as well. So I think they're going to play on this, certainly. Next week, the big announcement was made that CM Punk and MJF, for the first time ever, are going to be facing off. They're scheduled to finally collide inside the ring. Next week's Dynamite, we'll see the two men go one-on-one for the first time. Of course, it's actually going to be in Chicago next week as well. So a big, big match in a big, big venue, in a big, big hometown match. So the crowd's going to be just insane. I think they're hoping it's going to pop a big number as well. They had a segment last night. CM Punk comes out ready to fight. He wanted to do the match in Cleveland. He has a lot of history of Cleveland because, of course, he was meant to be at that Raw in Cleveland after the Royal Rumble in 2014, and he no-showed. They talked about that. The segment saw the Pinnacle coming out and beating down CM Punk. Wardlow powerbombed CM Punk onto a chair. FTR beat him down. Sean Spears attacked him with a steel chair too. And then it ended with MJF doing the cross-legged sit on CM Punk's chest. I said sit as well, on CM Punk's chest. Huge match, and this is what they're building towards. I think that a lot of discussion was, isn't it? Because this story's been going on since late October, early November. And the discussion was, when are they going to do that match? Because can they hold out basically until Revolution in March? And I think the answer is no, they can't. And it does make sense because Revolution, again, beginning of March, and I know we're at the end of January, and we could still see that match. I think that's a possibility. We could have a gimmick match or some kind of version of this match, but they have to fight off at some point. And maybe this is the right way of doing it. Maybe it's a case of, actually, you know what? We can have the match in Chicago. Maybe this is where MJF gets the first victory over CM Punk, right? What better place to do it than Chicago? Think of the Heat. Oh, the Heat, right? Think of that. And then they have the rematch at Revolution, and they put some kind of gimmick over it, whether it's a street fight, whether it's, if CM Punk loses, he has to leave or he has to quit again. I don't know. They could extend it, but they have to face off at some point. So given the crowd and given the hype that goes into it, given that this has been announced 7 days ahead of time, I think AEW will be certainly hoping to pop a big number, certainly with the crowd and with the expectation. First time ever. It's a big match. It's a dream match that people hope to see the moment that CM Punk signed with AEW, and we're going to see it next week. So certainly very exciting. I think MJF wins as well. I don't see the point of CM Punk beating him, to be honest. I think it makes sense that Punk puts MJF over and they build to a match Revolution, then Punk gets his win there. To me, that makes more sense. But they might, because I don't see the feud ending. It would be a really abrupt ending if CM Punk just beats MJF and that's over. To me, that's way too abrupt. And I don't see CM Punk transitioning into a World Championship match yet. I see if CM Punk challenging for the World Championship, to me, makes sense for him to challenge at it at All Out, because that's going to be in Chicago again, right? And I think it's going to probably be at the United Center this time. So that makes way more sense to me. Pay-per-view, Southern pay-per-view, challenging for the World Championship a year after he made his return back inside of the ring of pro wrestling, that jibes for me. So I think that MJF wins next week. They have Punk versus MJF 2 at Revolution. That's where Punk wins, and then that's when he moves on to, actually, the next thing I want to do is challenge for the World Championship. That makes a lot of sense. But it's not the only match that's been announced for next week as well. Next week, we have a tag team match, the Kings of the Black Throne, of course, Brody King and Malachi Black, who had a great promo last night, real great vignette, really enjoyed that, are going to be facing Penta El Zero Miedo and Pac. Though it hasn't been officially confirmed, Nyla Rose emerged from the backstage area and demanded that she gets a match against Ruby Soho next week on Dynamite, so we're assuming that that match is going to happen too. So those are the matches that have been announced for next week. 2 weeks, though, we have an AEW World Championship match, but it's not going to be any normal type of match. It's going to be a Texas Death Match, because last night on Dynamite, Hangman Page and his current rival Lance Archer were featured in a video package that saw a bit of back and forth, and Lance Archer challenged Hangman Page to a Texas Death Match for the AEW World Championship, which got that reaction from Hangman Page as well, it must be said. So he was like, what? Texas Death Match? Whoa. He looked a bit, but he accepted it anyway, so we've got the match in a couple of weeks. Archer and actually John Moxley, of course, had that brutal Texas Death Match in July on Night 2 of Fyter Fest, which Archer won, and won the IWGP United States Heavyweights Championship at the time. It's a weird one, this storyline, because after Hangman Page won the AEW World Championship, it does just kind of feel like, not so much after the Bryan Danielson feud, because the Bryan Danielson feud did feel like the biggest thing really going in Dynamite or in AEW at the time, but now this is a secondary feud. And he does need it. Not every feud can be the biggest feud, and I know some people have their feelings about the AEW World Champion being the centerpiece of the show, but he's not now. But he needs these kind of feuds, I think, just to build up, just to continue and tide him over. Because, I think he's going to face Adam Cole at Revolution. The issue is I don't know if that's going to be the biggest match on the card, and I don't know if that's the best way to build up your world champion, to be honest with you. But either way, I think that Hangman's going to be involved in another bloody classic. It will be the main event of that show, certainly. It has to be, right? It has to be. But Hangman Page is going to win that one. Matches have been announced for Rampage this week. They're continuing with the Beach Break theme. You can see on the screen right there that John Moxley is going to be facing Anthony Bowens of The Acclaimed. They did a video package to hype up that match, because that's how they set up matches in AEW. They're calling it Championship Friday, because there's 2 championship matches that have also been announced. We've got the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The Jurassic Express are facing off against Private Party. You've also got the TBS Championship on the line, as Jade Cargill is defending against Julia Hart in an open challenge. And you've also got a tag team match. The AAA Tag Team Champions, FTR, facing Lee Jordan and Brock Anderson. Of course, that was the match that a couple of weeks ago was meant to take place on Dynamite, and it just didn't, because I guess they ran out of time. Finally, Marco Stunt has announced that he is accepting indie bookings and international bookings. He put out a tweet yesterday that said, quote, "As of right now, I'm accepting indie bookings and I'm ready to go anywhere. I have my passport as well," and spoke about the open dates he has. So, of course, Marco Stunt, it's been rumored and reported that his contract is set to expire soon with AEW, and it's looking likely that his deal is not going to be picked up. Of course, he's no longer been featured with Jurassic Express that we just spoke about. It's Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian Cage as opposed to Marco Stunt. So it looks like his contract is expiring and he is going to be accepting indie dates. You know, like I said before, I think it's just a case of AEW evolving. And I know people liked Marco Stunt being involved in Jurassic Express, but to me, whilst Christian Cage is an awkward fit, and I think that's the problem, is it feels a bit awkward, him being involved in that faction, it makes sense for the rub, and eventually we're going to have Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy. Jungle Boy's going to beat him, and it's going to be the moment that all of this has been building towards, and you can't have that with Marco Stunt. So I think that makes sense. But nevertheless, guys, as always, let me know your thoughts about today's AEW stories in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.